Two further offences relate to evidence obtained by Merseyside police during searches of Axel Rudikbana's home address.
It is quite clear that there are serious questions to be asked of the police.
I would find it extraordinary that he did not know what was going on.
The 18-year-old male from Cardiff, Wales, who, on the 29th of July 2024, allegedly took the lives of 6-year-old BB King, 7-year-old Elsie Stancombe and 9-year-old Alice Aguiar in a vicious knife attack in Southport, is now being charged with two further offences: obtaining an Al-Qaeda terrorist manual and concocting the deadly chemical ricin. These are both terror-related offences.
The two further offences relate to evidence obtained by Merseyside police during searches of Axel Rudikbana's home address as part of a lengthy and complex investigation which has been ongoing since the 29th of July. The additional charges are the production of a biological toxin, namely ricin, contrary to Section 1 of the Biological Weapons Act 1974, and possession of information, namely a PDF file entitled Military Studies in the Jihad Against the Tyrants, the Al-Qaeda Training Manual, likely to be useful to a person committing or preparing to commit an act of terrorism.
This information was publicised on the 29th of October 2024, 3 months after the Southport atrocity unravelled. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer branded all those who took to the streets in protest and committed acts of violence and vandalism behaviour that no reasonable person could ever condone, of course, far-right thugs. In contrast, the PM omitted any reference to the perpetrator of the atrocity as a terror-affiliated individual. One such individual is a different kind of political extremist to the apparent far-right thugs who were smashing up the streets, granted. But that person is a political extremist all the same, and in this case, unlike Starmer's far-right thugs, this terror-affiliated individual actually, or rather, to follow criminal justice protocols, allegedly unalived people, 3 innocent little girls. Now, I've assumed clearly that the PM knew about the evidence of terror affiliation relating to the perpetrator before the civil unrest triggered by the perpetrator's acts unfolded. Did he?
I would find it extraordinary that he did not know what was going on. If you think these materials were found in the suspect's house, that must have happened fairly soon after the appalling atrocity that took place in Southport. So I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know those things.
Any chance that the PM kept the information about the perpetrator's terror affiliation quiet in order, ultimately, to avoid a public outcry, accompanied potentially with further civil unrest? This outcry, along with any accompanying rioting, wouldn't necessarily have been against Sir Keir Starmer's own handling of the terrorist threat in the UK, since he was barely 3 weeks into the job of PM when the Southport atrocity happened. It would have been an outcry against the failure of successive governments to eliminate the terrorist threat, the PM standing, despite the recency of his having become leader of the UK, as the most visible symbol of UK government. The PM may equally not have been ready to address the matter of immigration, both legal immigration and illegal immigration, a matter which many believe was the true trigger for the rioting that came from the Southport atrocity, the perpetrator being the son of Rwandan immigrants. On LBC, for instance, someone called in and said that the perpetrator's parents shouldn't have been allowed to come and live in the country in the first place. Anyway, for now, I'll just repeat my question. Is it likely that the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, deliberately kept the Southport perpetrator's terror affiliation from the public for all of 3 months?
For months, the authorities have said that there was no terror-related nature to this terrible atrocity. And yet yesterday we learned for the first time that, in fact, the suspect had allegedly had access to Al-Qaeda manuals and to dangerous substances such as ricin. And this raises serious questions about the handling of this case. Why was this information not put into the public domain sooner? The public have a right to know more about incidents like this which may have a terrorist element. Terrorist attacks are attacks on all of us, on our society. And it's important that the police and the authorities are as open and transparent as possible so that the public can have trust in our system. And it's important for Keir Starmer now to be clear. What did he know? and when.
Yeah, you talk about the handling of the case. I think a lot of people out there in the public think it's been the handling of the public. There was clearly a big push to really prevent anybody talking or raising any suspicions about what had gone on. Do you think that he has sort of manhandled the public somewhat? Do you think he has been a little bit too heavy-handed in the way he has tried to manage this situation, especially among ordinary people?
Well, this was an atrocity which attracted immense public interest and concern, so much so that Keir Starmer did a press conference from number 10 Downing Street about it and its aftermath. The police said that they would keep the public informed with regular updates.
3 months, Mr. Jenrick, is how long it's taken for the police to share this information with the public, as you know. But was it the police's own free, informed and deliberate decision to delay the publicising of that information until now?
Well, if there was a cover-up, that will cause permanent damage to public trust and confidence in the police and in Sir Keir Starmer and his government. I don't want to live in a country in which the state is concealing information, lying to the public in order to manage community tensions and cohesion. That's why I think it is important now that Keir Starmer is honest with the public. When did he learn this information? If it was very early on, why was he and the police not more transparent? In my experience as a minister, senior ministers in the Home Office and indeed the Prime Minister are informed very swiftly, often within hours of serious incidents like this, of the nature of the incident and what the police know or don't know about the suspected perpetrator. It is strange, therefore, that this information has taken so long to come into the public domain. And Sir Keir Starmer, the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper and others made repeated statements urging the public not to believe misinformation as they described it, when they may well have known far more about the case than they were willing to let on.
If the announcement of the terrorist activities of the perpetrator was timed to divert attention away from PM Starmer's budget statement of betrayal, it hasn't worked. The media are, as at the 31st of October 2024, having a field day with the numerous broken promises contained in the programme of tax hikes and public spending that was unveiled on the 30th of October by PM Keir Starmer and Chancellor Rachel Reeves. There is speculation that the disclosing of the perpetrator's terrorist involvement was timed to come after the 2 street protests that took place in central London on Saturday the 26th of October. The Tommy Robinson Unite the Kingdom rally, which the star of the show himself didn't attend because he was in police custody. And that was followed by the Stand Up to Racism march, left wing versus right wing. Speaking of the former leader of the English Defence League, I've suggested that the PM is willing to call people far-right thugs without actually checking that that's what they are. I believe that for the PM, this would include people who share the political views of Tommy Robinson.
Keir is terrified. People will realise he has no intention at all of smashing the people smuggling gangs. They're not going to stop the boats. And they'll find out there's 745,000 illegal immigrants living in Britain right now. More than any other European country. Each and every one of you is going to cost you £400,000 for each one of those individuals over their lifetime.
That the political views held by Tommy Robinson and his followers are truly racist and nativist, which is what I believe far-right means, is, in my opinion, debatable. I'm not saying they are, I'm not saying they aren't, I'm just saying that a debate should be had on the matter before any conclusions are reached. Now, getting back to PM Starmer, while he is, as I say, readily prepared to label people far-right thugs, is he, in contrast, basically too scared to call anyone, publicly at least, an Islamic terrorist?
The whole narrative that has been allowed to develop that somehow Britain has a problem with the far right, but we don't have a problem with Islamist terrorism, is... The public don't believe it.
No, of course they don't.
People know that's not true.
Right.
And it erodes trust in politics, it erodes trust in the machinery of government, because it's not just the politicians we're talking about here. It is the police, it is the intelligence services, it is the CPS. But it seems extraordinary that it should only come out now.
Yeah.
So does this mean that Nigel Farage himself is a more reliable source of information relating to the Southport perpetrator than the Prime Minister of the UK?
But what about politicising this themselves? Because it strikes me that one person who was very much framed and had the finger of blame pointed directly at them was Nigel Farage, who simply suggested at the time that the public were not being told everything. I mean, he's been vindicated, hasn't he? Do you think he deserves an apology from people on the green benches and some people in the media?
Not so fast, young Miss Phillips. I believe that Mr Farage was suggesting that the 3 unalivings plus the 10 attempted unalivings committed by the perpetrator were themselves acts of terrorism. That's not what the police are saying, however. In law, for a criminal act to be classed as an act of terrorism, it has to have a particular motive to it. The police say that they don't know what the perpetrator's motive for his knife attack was, meaning, as you can see, that it's impossible for them to class the knife attack as a terrorist incident.
At this time, counter-terrorism policing has not declared the events of the 29th of July a terrorist incident. I recognise that these new charges may lead to speculation. The matter for which Axel Rudikabana has been charged under the Terrorism Act does not require motive to be established. For a matter to be declared as a terrorist incident, motivation would need to be established. I would strongly advise anyone against speculating as to the motivation in this case. The criminal proceedings against Axel Rudikabana are live and he has a right to a fair trial.
In my opinion, the perpetrator deserves hell. If this video has gripped you, I recommend you to watch this one next. I'll meet you there.